Hey, fellow Hulk fans, it's Jerry Rasco here with you again today, and we are going to be spending some time together talking about the Incredible Hulk #6. So, I'm very excited about this issue. There's a lot of stuff going on here to talk about. It's one I've been waiting for. I remember reading this reprint as a kid in like a reprint little trade paperback kind of thing that they had, and years later I've reread it many times. It's one of my favorite early Hulk issues, and I'm very excited to go over it with all of you today. I do want to remind everybody, if you're new, please think about subscribing to the channel. It helps me out a ton. It helps out the channel a lot, and we are on that push to 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2026. When we get to 1,000 subscribers, one lucky winner will get original artwork for free. We have this amazing Spider-Man piece, and we have this Incredible Hulk piece, both 11 by 17 by yours truly, which will go out 100% for free for one lucky subscriber. And all you have to do is click that button to be eligible to subscribe. So thank you again for doing that. For everybody who's backed and who has supported the channel, I really appreciate it. Now, again, not only do we have an awesome issue to look at today, but I have my friend and special guest, Nick Caputo, with us again today. Nick, how are you doing?
Doing well, Jerry. I have my Hulk t-shirt on.
Awesome.
That's not the original, but it's a remake of that. And,
that is fantastic.
It's held up. That's got the front and the back.
Oh, okay, cool.
Here comes the Hulk. There goes the Hulk with a little toy he's carrying. And I always like that.
One of the things I haven't really talked about so far in this series when I started doing these Hulk issues was that eventually the Hulk really does become probably Marvel's either #1 or #2 marketed character. The Hulk was on every piece of merch when I was a kid. You know, you're talking late 70s to early 80s.
With the TV show, yes.
The TV show. I mean, the first one that had there was the Spider-Man with Nick Hammond, the movies. There was Captain America with Reb Brown.
Right.
But I think as far as an ongoing every week show,
that was a popular huge
series. The Hulk was the first one. So he really was ended up becoming a masthead for the company. But here in these early days, we're going to see something where we're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So
exactly.
It didn't start that way, but it ended
not at all. No. It grew.
Yeah. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to pull up the book here so we can take a look at it in the cover. So again, this is the Incredible Hulk #6, and let's get right to the big story here. This is still Stan Lee writing, but we have gone from Jack Kirby and a couple different inkers to now Steve Ditko is on this issue, and it's a pretty big departure from some of what we had seen. I think the general Hulkness is there, but it's Ditko's unique take on it. And that's why when I knew I was going to do the series, I was like, this is the issue I've got to get Nick for.
Well, I have some info there. So
yeah.
Well, yeah, and from Ditko's own lips, there's his own writing on how he got that book. Basically, the book was probably going to get canceled. They might have known already at that point. I'm not sure, but they actually, moved Jack Kirby onto other things,
right?
Because the book was going to get canceled. I think at that time he was probably getting ready to do Sergeant Fury, which was coming out in a few months. So they had another series for him. He was finishing the FF annual. So he had a lot of work to do anyway, and they moved him on, and they gave Ditko the last issue to do. And that's how it happened. That it was just, they were moving on, or they thought they were moving on.
They thought they were right. Exactly. But it's interesting, not to jump ahead too far, but I mean, they leave several plot threads in this issue. Yeah. It's there to continue to pick up. So, whether
I think that was probably Stan's idea, because I think he, even in the last few panels, as you saw, there was more coming.
Yeah.
He had plans for the character. I think was gone for like 5 months, and then became part of the Avengers, or at least for a little while. So yeah, he had ideas what to do with the character. He wanted to keep that character going.
Yeah, you can tell either when when Stan Lee found something that he really liked, he either reworked it later.
Yeah,
and you see those kind of themes or similar characters popping up over and over, or just kind of tucked it away and end up you putting him in a team book or relaunching a book later. Like he was not going to give up on a
No, not at all. And Ditko said of this issue, I'll just give you a quick notice of this. He said, let's see, I have to find the little find where he was talking about it. Yes, Stan provided a brief treatment of the story, and he and I discussed the story idea. I worked out the visual story, supplied all the necessary details, and fill-in material for the 24-page story. I penciled the pages and provided rough script for the panels, captions, dialogue on 24 separate sheets of paper. I delivered the art and rough script pages, and Lee and I went over every page and panel for clarification. How I followed the synopsis, added to it, or changed it, and why. Any necessary corrections were made in the page margin to be done after Stan added dialogue, and the pages were lettered. I inked the story. This was the usual style Lee and Ditko employed in this period. So obviously very much involved. He got a plot synopsis from Stan. I think they talked about different ideas and stuff, because I'll point it out when you read it, what I think Ditko's ideas were, what I think Stan's were, and we'll see where that goes, and we'll see what you think.
It's fascinating, and it's a shame. We know from obviously the work that you and I discussed together on the Spider-Man series that how that relationship. So this is early 63, right? Yeah. Is the Hulk, and obviously Spider-Man, his last issue in Spider-Man was much later, and by then the relationship had just deteriorated.
Yeah, this was around the time, judging by the job numbers, which they have in the first page. Usually they mark it down, which was X116, and those were done for production reasons, to know when the books are going to be done and who's doing them, and for office use. But they always marked it down usually in that period, and that was done around the same time, or it was around the time of Spider-Man #2. Judging by the job numbers, might have been a little bit earlier, but around issue #2 when he was doing the Tinkerer story, this might have been a little bit before that.
Right.
There's no job number for the first story with the Vulture, but the second one is a little bit later than this, so it gives you an idea of what he was doing then.
I like this cover a lot. Like I said, it's one that I remember reading a lot. The way that he did the metal, there's just enough hints of the tank to let you know, he's transforming the tank into a cage, which is really, really nice. The Hulk is large and heavy, which is nice. I like a Hulk that has more mass to him.
Right.
Clearly that does. One of the things I've talked about a lot so far in this first 5 episodes of this series is how much, not just story-wise, but visually, how much they were kind of throwing things against the wall to see.
Every issue they were trying something.
So we know, like, obviously from issue 1 to 2, he goes from gray to green, and there's tons of stories about why and all that. But obviously we're trying something different. The look kind of solidified. Sometimes it was more of just a regular face with like a big eyebrows. Now they've really changed the structure of the face, the shorter nose, the broader chin to make him a little more monstery, which is a big deal. And then of course in the last couple issues here, we've seen this change from our traditional tattered pants to these little trunks to try to move him into that superhero genre.
Yes, that was only last a little while, but I'll get to that later.
Yeah. But I really like it. The color work too is great. I made a note about that red, gradient. Obviously, it's not as smooth as what we would see in modern comics today with computer coloring, but for them to hit those gradients with the printing technology they had at the time is pretty impressive. That was
probably most likely Stan Goldberg, who did the stuff in the gradations. Is something he always liked doing, from pink to darker colors. So he did that a lot. And even as I sent you the link to the Marvel Tales thing I did, he basically said in one of the interviews, no, Stan wanted the gray. I didn't want it, but we did it. And it didn't come out the way we liked it. It was going darker, lighter. It didn't work out well. That's when they changed it. He wanted to do, I think, green originally, you know, but he didn't. Stan said, no, do it gray. And then when it came out badly, he said, all right, do it your way. So Stan Goldberg was basically coloring everything at this point. Had some help once in a while, but until Marie Severin came in, maybe about a year or so later, she helped with the coloring. I think Sal Brodsky production man. Oh, occasionally, if they needed help, he could color too. He inked, he lettered, he colored, he could do everything, production. So it was a small, as I said when I emailed you a few times, it was a very small staff. Yeah. Very small staff, very few people to depend on. That's why Dick Ayers was doing everything practically as far as inking Kirby, and it was a backbreaking schedule, I'm sure.
Right.
I met Dick Ayers a few times, and we went to his house a couple of times. Very nice guy, but man, he had a lot of work in this period. And then he started penciling in this period, doing the superheroes, which he wasn't really that great on. He was better at the war stuff, with westerns and stuff, but they needed people. He did it. He did what he had to do.
That's it. Now we could go into a whole episode just on comic coloring, but just real quick for anybody who's not familiar, when we're talking about coloring back in this time, it was a multi-phase process. So what you'd end up doing is you would have colorists that would do color guides. So basically you're taking a reproduction of the art and they were hand coloring it with, typically, my understanding is always, it's called Doc Martens dyes.
Right.
They're very vibrant dye. So not a marker, not a paint, but something that's a little in between. And they had the mix. So like 3 drops of cyan and 2 drops of magenta gives you this shade of purple. And you would color code that on this guide, which then would actually go to the printers, so they would know, okay, on this page you got to pass it through the cyan printing at 50% and then the magenta at 25%, and that's going to mix together to give you your purple. And so when we talk coloring, a lot of people I don't think understand that, because we've gone so far in technology from what that was. People literally had to cut out little masks, for lack of a better term, to block out parts of a page so that you could print through, and it would only print in certain areas, and you take those off, put on other ones, put it through, so it's only hitting the paper at certain times. So that's why we get like color bleeds. You could see in this gradation, there's kind of a delineation of some of the line work, because it's dots. It's just dots combining to make color. Or why on the internal pages, sometimes interior pages, you'll see like the registration problem where, let's say, the color of your hair is down halfway on your forehead because the page wasn't quite lined up when it went through the printer, and it didn't print where it was supposed to. So then when it passed the black over the top of the lines, things don't line up. But for guys like us, who that's what we grew up with,
of course,
we're like, that's comics. That's what it is.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. But this is a really good cover. I like it a lot. The text is a little big for my taste sometimes.
Yeah, that's what they were doing back then. It was if you look at every book, practically, it was the huge amounts of word balloons or texts.
Exactly.
Too much, up to a point, a little bit too much. Later on, they cut down and they just had like one caption or did something else. But here's your favorite splash. There's nothing happening.
Splash. You know it. So I'll go ahead and just remind everybody.
I don't say it's nice, but
it is great.
It's nicely designed, even though it's doesn't follow, the story doesn't begin here.
This is a PDF copy of this book. So in 2007, Marvel took physical copies of all the books they had up to what was current at that time, and they scanned them all in a scanner and put them onto a DVD that you could then purchase and view on your computer or device and do it this way. So that's what we're looking at. So when you see things like these encyclopedia ads, or
that was the originals,
the old paper, that's exactly it. This is what we saw.
Guiche's there down on the bottom too, as you can see.
So you get down there and it tells you. So it's copyright 1962, and does it have a date? March 63,
which means it probably came out around December of 62. So almost 2 to 3 months in difference.
Right.
And you have the whole credits over here.
Yeah.
Which was, I think, the month before they started it. And before it was just Lee and Kirby. And now you have Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and Artie Simek lettering. So I think Artie Simek was one of the guys that fought for the lettering credits. That's what I've heard. You know,
that
him and
makes
Sam
sense.
Rosen, they were
And
doing everything.
they were
So.
doing exactly. I was gonna say there's only like two names. They were doing every
Yeah,
book
we
that
had a few
came
people
out.
filling in once in a while, and the letterers that came in. I did a whole post on the lettering people, but they were the two main people, and they were great. I
Right.
like Sam a little better, but you know, everybody has their favorites.
And that's something else to note. Like, so when you see credits in a comic, you'll see story by Stan, art by Steve Ditko, lettering by Art Simek. There's a good chance that throughout the book, somebody might have just dipped in to help,
Oh,
right? You're
sure.
like, hey, we're running tight on a deadline. Somebody comes in and inks a panel or inks a page or does some backgrounds or yeah, I got, some letters or whatever the
And that
case may
happened
be.
more in the '70s, as you probably know.
Right,
They would just say
exactly.
and company, and they'd have names for different, but
What was it called?
four
Was
or
it
five guys getting them.
Ramita's Raiders?
Yeah, yeah, you had
Right?
others too. I forget the names they had, but yeah,
Yeah,
I could see from page to page it changes. You know. Uh,
exactly.
and yeah, well, since lettering is the second thing to be done, it's penciled, then it's lettered, then it goes to the inkers. Sometimes they don't mention the inker change because if, say, Ditko was late, couldn't finish it, somebody comes in and they didn't. The credit only says Ditko, so that happened too at
Yep,
times.
exactly.
And a number of times back then, where somebody filled in, like you said, for a page or so, and
Yep.
you didn't have that. So yeah, the credits are sometimes correct, but not always. So.
I like this splash page a lot as a splash page. It's very, very good.
Nicely designed.
There's a lot of great stuff. I noted in my notes. I say this is arguably better than the cover. Just that there's
Yeah, you could say
it's
that.
different. There's more
I mean,
action.
Hulk's right prominently in the front. You know, it's
Yep.
a nice visual.
I really like the beam that's wrapping around the arm there.
Yeah.
You don't really notice it at first. It almost this sort of on the shoulder looks like just another piece of flying metal, but you trace it back and you realize, oh no, it's a girder that's bent around him onto his arm. The only thing here, the only detriment I have is right here at this hand. So this is a very strong tangent. So for anybody who's not familiar, tangent is when you have the outline of two objects that might not necessarily be in the same plane. So one might be in front of the other, but if they line up perfectly, right like this, right at the edge, you can't necessarily tell what's in front, what's not. And that's what's happening here in that hand. So just as a learning lesson for anybody who is an artist that wants to make their own comics and get into this, that's a big thing to look out for. That's what artists, editors, people like that who are reviewing your work, it's one of the first things they'll note and go, hey, watch out for those tangents, because it's very easy to fix. You move the piece of metal up and put some space between the hand and the object, or you overlap it even more so that it's clearly overlapped.
Right.
What the tangent does is it just flattens out the illusion of depth of space. So the instant you do that, depending on how severe or how egregious the tangent is, it can take readers out of what you're trying to show them visually. But I loved it. And in my notes, I did mention too the hatching ink style that Stan has, which is that Steve has.
Right.
It's very different than what we had seen in some of Jack's work. So with Jack and Dick Ayers doing it, there was a lot of more solid blacks, but
sure.
Steve Ditko seemed to bring in this sort of hatching approach maybe earlier than a lot of other artists. And obviously it became a staple. I mean, when we think of stuff like 90s, it's all cross hatching and stuff like that. But it's great. This, like the back of this leg, the back of the thigh there, that's incredible. It's just a cool little detail. You could black it out as a full shadow, but by doing the hatch lines, it really brings a nice texture and touch to it that I liked a lot. Let's see. So we'll move on here into the story. And again, just a recap for anybody who hasn't seen the previous episodes. The Hulk at this point, like I said, they were throwing everything against the wall. So original Hulk was he transforms at night and then he transforms back at day. Then he gets a little bit smarter. Then they start using this. They build the cave layer, which I made a note is like this cave layer is like straight up bat cave. Like we'll talk about it, but you're like, what? But now Bruce Banner is using a gamma machine to turn himself back and forth into the Hulk. anytime he wants. So it doesn't matter day, night. So obviously that somewhere along the line, Stan must have figured out if he can only be the Hulk at night, that's going to really limit what we can do, right? The stories and things. So that wasn't going to work. Then there was also the part where he's controlled mentally by Rick Jones.
Oh, right.
So again, like they're throwing something out there, being like, "Hey, is Rick really the star of the book? Right? Is it approach to teenagers reading, and is it,
Well, you see that here in this issue."
Yeah,
as we get into, we talk about teens. I have some comments about that too.
Yes. So here what we've got is we've got a Hulk that's clearly a different personality than Bruce Banner. They refer to each other separately. But he's got this layer, this super science cave layer, and he's moved into the trunk phase so that he's kind of more superhero-y at times.
Yeah, and he's aware that he's Banner too.
Yes.
He has that knowledge. Later on, he doesn't know that.
So to me, that's really taking it back. Again, it's been back and forth. Sometimes it's a little Frankenstein-y. Then it becomes a little Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And this is definitely more of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde
like that now.
Episode or issue.
I like that panel. The face on panel 4 of the Hulk is really good, I think. On page 2.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great image.
Yeah, I said the exact same thing. I have that same note for both that one and on the opposite page there, panel 3. That curling of the lip and the dark eyes is fantastic.
Yeah.
And you can tell like the fist pose with the lip curled up like that is a very Ditko pose. We saw that a lot in Spidey as we were going through those issues. So it just feels very comfortable.
And a little Boris Karloff like.
It is. So the look is more Frankenstein-y for sure. Yeah. The portrayal is more Jekyll and Hyde. So it's a real interesting mix that they've hit here. Yeah. The other thing is there's tons of small panels in this book, which is very common of the age. Lots of talking heads, everything kind of small, a lot of, and I was talking about pacing. It's a lot of, we're going to show kind of every moment
going on.
But there's a few of these large, wider panels where it's he pans out and you see the landscape and what's going on. And that really works, especially with the army. It gives you a sense of how the scale of who's out looking for the Hulk, how many people there are, which is really hard to do in, a 3x5.
You got to show that scope. That's important.
Yeah.
To realize that.
So he was able to do that, which is great because, like I said, that wasn't the style of the time in terms of most comics. I'm going to ask one last thing. I'll ask you, I don't know if you know this answer or not, but as we go through, I noticed, and this is a general Steve Ditko thing,
right?
His line work, when we compare it to other, separate inkers, his line work is very thin. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Right.
He has a very fine line.
Oh, yeah.
Even the heavy lines are not nearly as thick as, what we see with like Mike Esposito or Dick Ayers or people like that. Do you know, is it all brushwork, which was the norm at the time, or did he use like a technical pen or any other kind of tools to get that kind of fine line? I don't know the answer. That's
not sure. I think mostly brushwork, but he may have used other tools. At times he liked to experiment with things, so he may have used other tools at the time too.
If it's brushwork, that's incredible because the fine detail and stuff that he gets, and again, I don't, I'm not gonna. There's some pages we're gonna zoom through because there's not a lot happening on all of them, but we're gonna spend our time here. This hatching on this bicep to create this shadow, if that's a brush, what an incredible fine, tiny, spacing in that. That's, you get in there. That is incredible line work to do with a brush, and to keep it that straight, that consistent. That's awesome. It tells you that obviously we know Steve Ditko was a storyteller.
Oh yeah.
But it's clear he could have been a professional inker.
He could have. Yeah, he certainly could.
Just inker. He was that good. So the Hulk transforms back into Banner, and there's consequences. For a minute he's much, much stronger, and then it goes away. This is kind of heading into what happens later, but they've been teasing this the last couple issues. He keeps talking about if he keeps using this gamma machine to transform, bad things will happen.
Yeah,
but of course,
exactly.
he can't stop himself from doing it.
But he has a widescreen TV over there.
This is where I had in my notes.
This is some cave I'd like to be in.
I'm like, what is this? This is straight up. I literally put this is straight up Batcave. Not only is it a TV, but it can tune into, where's the cameras? Like, who's broadcasting this from this top secret military launch?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You know, there was in the previous episode, they go into their library. He has a fully stocked library in the cave, right? He has like comfy armchairs, and he transforms, and after he transforms, he has on his smoking jacket and an ascot. And you're like,
oh yeah,
what kind of?
He's got a whole wardrobe there.
What kind of cave is it? We went from, oh, this is a place we could lock up the Hulk to. This is full on, like, I live here.
Yeah,
it's top of the line stuff. It's unbelievable. But it's clearly, again, trying to, so was the monster version not tapping into the audience? And so they're trying to
something there. Yeah.
These are subtle things to try to push it more towards that superhero stuff.
It's definitely this issue. Yeah.
Yeah. The Metal Master is perfectly fine. I said the design is I hadn't really thought about it. As a kid, I was like, yeah, it's fine. He doesn't look particularly alien. He's got a big bald head, but
yeah,
so do other characters. He just has this little like corset kind of thing on a costume. It's not the most elaborate design, but it's also simple and it's consistent, and you don't have to worry about all the extra doodads and patterns and things that Jack Kirby would have added here that just make it that much harder to be consistent. So it's okay, but I like this depiction of how his powers work. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. He's talking about the atoms of that make up metal and how he can control those, and it's an interesting visual take on how to do it.
Yeah, that works.
And it makes so that's a thing. I'm guessing, this is my own opinion, but you tell me what you think. I'm guessing this is a Ditkoism.
I was just going to say that Ditko focused on this.
Yeah,
Ditko Stan probably came up with a villain, the Metal Master, and an alien creature, an alien being coming in. But I think Ditko focused on the powers and how to visualize it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great. It works out really well. It's a simple thing. It's one page, and you've got all the information you need right there.
Yeah,
you move on. It's great. I liked the soldiers here. One of the things I've said, in making my own comics is it's very easy for us to come up with good designs for your main characters, their supporting cast, the people you draw all the time, villains, to come up with just a rando extra person number one is, for whatever reason, is really hard. And so these faces are just really good. They're very expressive. I love the little detail. This little pinky sticking out right there is great.
Ditko added little touches. Yeah.
And that's what sets an okay artist apart from a great artist. Is they're going to take these two soldiers that you'll never see again and give them personality in the story, and that's super important. So I really liked those two guys. I thought their faces were funny. It's a little bit of comedy, and it fits really well. And all right, so the Metal Master's taking over, and of course Thunderbolt Ross is gonna try to do something which is kind of dumb and send missiles at him.
Of course,
they're made of metal. Don't worry about it. You just saw what he could do, but don't worry about it. It's fine. And now we have one of the weirder parts of the story.
Yes, I wonder where that came from.
Where did this come from?
I think that Stan probably was telling Ditko that he wanted, this scammer machine is not working that well. It's going to affect him somehow. He probably came up with the idea of, let's have Banner Space there. Who else would have done it, And then a mask. Use a mask to cover.
Right. And then we have to resolve it in like half a page. So we're
quickly.
It goes put on a mask. But I did note here that he does say this, that when he transforms, even though it's Banner's head, he's referring to Banner as another person.
Yeah.
I've got Banner's milksop face. So again, really made me go, oh, they're really playing into they're two people.
Jekyll Hyde thing, yeah.
Jekyll Hyde, yeah, early on. The mask makes no sense whatsoever. Like, why would you do this? It doesn't, I don't understand why you
has to be in the story. We need it.
Yeah. And then it doesn't change the shape of your head. So how you put on the mask and it's still flat on the top of his head, and
I guess it changed Jerry, I can explain that.
Okay.
It automatically changed back as soon as he put it back on. And the whole thing, how do we know? You don't know when it changed back, right?
Perfect.
Later on, we'll find out. It's back. But look at it there. How could it? You're right. How would it work? But he wouldn't know that.
So. He wouldn't know it, right? He doesn't know. So they
give an explanation.
You get a no prize for your explanation. He leaps off, and we've now really dialed in again to the leaping. So there was a few issues there where it was clear he was not leaping. He was flying, hands first, classic superhero, and changing direction in the air.
Exactly.
Where now, and I really like this. So the way that Steve drew him, he's coming in feet first. He is leaping for sure.
Yeah, I think he wanted to show that closely. Show that this is what he's doing. He might have thought the same way. He looks like he's flying. He was very particular about stuff. So yeah, he probably noticed that.
Now, for me, if I was going to take and let's say I'm going to redo this, how would I do it? And this sequence of him leaping away, because it's a quick action, but because of the pacing of 5 panels, it feels slow.
Right.
You would normally just kind of go probably from like panel 2 to panel 5.
Right.
Crouch down and then jump off. And that's all you need. But it's obvious, we've seen it from the explanation of the Metal Masters powers, we've seen it with him going in on again with Spider-Man and diving into how the web shooters work and the technology of it and all this stuff. Steve was very into the process. So I think, it's clear he wants to show what the Hulk does as he leaps. And I think that's why there's kind of a slow pace when there's an economy of panels you could do it, which is a lot less drawing, but obviously this was important enough to him to include.
Yeah.
We have our sort of scene from the splash page and the cover.
Bigger panel.
Yep. And we've got, and fighting off the metal and throwing stuff at him, which is great. This bottom panel, 1, 2, 3, 4, panel 6. To me, I made a note, this looks like either another hand or a rush job.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that just because even if you look over at the page across, like this one, the top panel 1 on the next page, you see the shading, the hatching, the detail. And over here, it's just kind of bold black shapes around the eyes, under the nose, and the hair. The hair is probably what tipped me off most. Real fat, blobby brush strokes.
Yeah, could have been rushed.
That we haven't seen. Again, my guess, honestly, I thought this looks like another hand to me. Like somebody was like, hey, I'll chip in. It's a small panel. There's not a lot of stuff there. It made me wonder if maybe there was an uncredited ink assist or something.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, I have to look closely at it and let you know, because I'm pretty good at identifying who did what. But, most of the time, if there was any corrections made last minute, anybody could have came in and did it. But usually Saul Brodsky would be the guy that would fill in. But anybody if Dick Ayers was there or somebody walked in the office, something was not right, Stan would have somebody fix it up. So it could be, and it could be either way. I have to look closely to see what I think. But I think it's, it certainly could be touched up a little by someone else.
Now, there's also a thing that unless you can see the original art itself, we wouldn't know this. But there are things that we don't do anymore because of digital correction. But back in the day, you used to do things that are called paste ups.
Right.
So paste up, let's say that particular panel, it's drawn, it's inked, and then somewhere along the line, you spill some ink on it, or or Stan comes back and he goes, "Oh, you know what? That doesn't work for what I
Right.
want to do. We got to change it." So what they do is they would just draw a new panel on a new piece of paper,
Oh,
cut it
sure.
out, and
Yeah.
literally paste it
Paste
over.
it over.
And so you could get that too. You could, somebody post like late in production could have gone, "Oh, there's something wrong with that panel. Hey, so and so, Marie Severin or whoever."
Yeah. Well, did go
or
did a
or
background and fixed an FF background once. And
exactly.
it was him, He must have been in the offset stand. Must have said, "Can you fix this?
Hey,
I
can you
don't want
grab
this
this
is
real
wrong.
quick?
Redo
It
this." And Ditko, I think if I look closely at number 2, I didn't point this out. I forgot to mention that to you. When I
uh
looked through it, there was 1 or 2 panels that looked like Ditko did the whole panel himself.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, so I think maybe Stan wasn't satisfied with what Kirby did, or wanted to change something that looked like a Ditko panel to me.
right.
So that
Yeah,
would happen in the inking stage. You say, "Steve, fix this, redo this one."
exactly. It really was an all hands on deck kind of
Yeah,
almost today we would call like a startup where like everybody does everything, chip in whatever you got to do to get the product out and get it done. That's
yeah.
what
And
the
the
early
inking
days
was a
were.
lot of rush jobs because that was the last in the process, except for coloring to get done.
Right.
So that means you get a Mike Esposito or a George Rousseau or something last minute. We
Yep.
need this by next 3 days from now.
Yep.
This is what happened a lot of times.
Absolutely.
And I think
I,
DeGayas was very quick because he would tell us he'd get it done overnight, put it in the post office in the morning, and they get it in the afternoon.
yep.
That's how quickly it had to get done sometimes.
Yeah.
Special post.
I can imagine that when the introduction of things like FedEx and UPS must have been a lifesaver for these guys.
Definitely. Definitely.
I've heard
there were artists that had deadline problems and
yes.
waited till I couldn't get things done till the last moment. So
I have heard firsthand accounts of people who were like, we were doing 50 in a 30-mile-an-hour up on the curb to get to the FedEx office before it closed. I've heard those stories firsthand. I like these panels up here again are great on the next page.
Yeah.
He's holding this box up, and then again, that we talked about it. This face is very similar to the ones we liked before with that curled lip and the fist out. It's a great, just classic Ditko pose. I like the fact that for half a second, the Metal Master does kind of appeal to this idea of, do you want to be a bad guy?
Yeah, I like that. I was going to mention that. Good point.
Because we saw
because this is what we had in this period where it's like, these characters are not always perfect, and he's starting to say, "Hey, maybe I could do something." He said, "Nah," automatically changes. But yeah, you appeal to him for a moment or so.
The issue with the Toadmen, right? So that's issue 2, 3, 2. He kind of does the same thing. He defeats the Toadmen, and he's got the ship. And for a minute, the Hulk is like, "I could use this ship to take over." So it tells you that it's there. That thought process is kind of in the back of his mind all the time, which again is very interesting and certainly doesn't match up with I think where Stan wanted to head with the more superhero-y.
Right. They just want to have a hint of that, it's they might have other thoughts in their heads,
Yeah.
They might have that thought and it would pass by, but at least they'd, question things,
Right. So they pull the mask off, and just like you said, there it is. His real face was underneath the whole time. What do you need the mask for? That's crazy.
I think it was just just an idea that he probably came up with because he always liked to do things with masks and stuff. So I suspect it's Ditko. That's my guess.
And I like the way he draws them. So we've talked about this as well. Some of the old Spideys, you feel
the mask off. Yeah,
it's tight. You feel the tension of the material as they're pulling it, the wrinkles, and the shape underneath.
Yeah,
very, very good.
But it was a weird thing, but it worked.
It is a weird thing, but the only thing I would have liked is if you want to ramp up the drama, you take this last panel and you put it on the page turn. So they're pulling the mask off, and you go, "Oh no, what's going to happen? Are they going to find out?" And then you turn the page and realize, "Oh no, we're all good."
Well, this could run for 6 months with that storyline these days,
right?
6-issue series, miniseries.
Was it decompressed storytelling? Is that what
Yeah.
deconstructed? So the military's got him, and they're bringing him to this special cell that they built for him. And I mentioned, for me, Ross here in this panel, if you, with a little bit of coloring changes, that could be J. Jonah Jameson. The pose, the cigar.
Oh yeah.
The Betty Ross in the background, I mentioned it later again, very much like Betty Brant in some of the early Spider-Man stuff, but that to me looks like happy J. Jonah Jameson. So you're like, okay, I got you. It's, you have a what do you call it? Not a type, a character that
a personality. Yeah.
A personality, yeah.
They kind of fit in the same mold,
Yep. And then this picture, down at the bottom with Rick in the foreground as the Hulk is trying to get at him.
Right.
I thought was really nice, really
that
powerful.
Worked out well, yeah.
Yeah. It's another
hands, again, you get the hand coming out immediately at you.
And then the grip, right?
Yeah.
So two things. One, so again, artists, new or younger artists, people starting out, hands are critical. Hands tell you so much about the emotion and the feeling. And if you want to have strong characters, you need to be able to draw good hands. But then that foreground framing device, so having something very close, just kind of on the side of the panel bottom, somewhere to frame up the whole image, makes it better that if you just have the Hulk reaching out, but by putting that object in the foreground, it gives us better sense of depth, and again, just sort of frames the whole image. So
and Ditko was masterful at drawing the hands. So
it's for sure.
It's a story that Ross Andru met him and DC offices one day, and he says, "Steve, I got to ask you something. How do you get to draw the hands that way?" And Steve just went something like, put the hands up like, joking, like, "Well, that's what I do. And so this is it. These are the hands."
There you go.
So that was his answer. That's part of the character, personality of the character.
It really is
expressive.
So they have the Hulk's trying to break out. They're trying to figure out what to do here, and there's actually, this scene comes up kind of twice, I believe, but I mention it. Yes. So later we see this as well, but this scene of the Metal Master going around doing stuff, and the image is panning out till you see the whole Earth.
Yeah.
To give you again that scope of the story to go, hey, this encompasses the whole Earth.
Well, my note was, where's the Fantastic Four?
Where?
This is world danger over here. The Fantastic Four, Midtown Manhattan. Where are they?
That's a great.
There's no mention of them. Yes, they could be on another planet. They could be doing something off Earth, but they could have at least made a mention of it. Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, no, it's a great point.
And then, because we didn't have the Avengers yet, so the Fantastic Four would be the ones to go to.
Yeah.
And no mention of them.
Nope. And then here's what you were talking about with the teens. So
yes, I think it's a Stan idea.
I would guess yes.
Because he figured that kids could relate to teenagers. They got a bunch of teenage kids, but there's one problem. You already had teenage heroes. You had Human Torch. You had Spider-Man. Later on, you'd have the X-Men. So you would have people that characters that they could relate to, who were stronger than them or more powerful. Why would you want other teenagers? It lasted for about a year, Jerry.
Okay.
And the Teen Brigade would be in the Avengers mostly, and they actually helped set up get the Avengers together in Avengers #1.
Right.
So they did something worthwhile, but this wanted to use Rick somehow or other, and again make it a little more friendly with the kids. Maybe the kids would relate to this, but I don't think it really worked that well.
Well, you bring up a really good point, which is the whole concept of how can we make Rick Jones important to the story?
Yeah.
Right. Because at this point, in theory, the Hulk is operating pretty solo if he wants to. He can change back and forth. He's got this great super crime fighting layer.
Right.
he could be as smart as Banner, as strong as the Hulk. What does he need Rick Jones for? So you got to come up with something. And
Yeah.
it's clear Rick Jones was obviously a Stan Lee favorite because Rick Jones appears throughout the Marvel universe for decades.
He's
They
all
just
over, and then
oh,
Roy Thomas would use him later on also
yeah.
with Captain Marvel. So he was always a sidekick to someone.
Between like
Here,
Captain,
lapses between here and Captain America.
yeah, I was gonna say
Was
Captain America, Captain Marvel, the
when the
Hulk,
Avengers were created, they put him in there more of like a sidekick to Cap, but he was
right?
also with the Hulk later on still. So it took a little
It,
while to merge everything, but he was very much part of that mix. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I like the series here where the Hulk is breaking out, and I
Oh,
thought it was really interesting to show it from that angle.
yeah,
Most
that's another one I pointed out. I was going to that 3-panel sequence is something I just wrote down in my notes. Is it's really, really nicely done.
It's really nicely
4-panel.
done. And because most of the time if I'm somebody tells me, hey, you draw a guy and he's punching his way out of a solid concrete wall, I'd show him making progress, and then maybe that last punch show, the outside light
Yeah,
coming through or something.
you showed it from a different perspective.
You'd be showing it from the Hulk's perspective, and here
Yeah.
it's from the outside, which is really original.
Yeah.
And I thought it worked great. I like it a lot. This is another one I mentioned. This is again where Ross, just his expressions. Maybe it's the cigar and the mustache. I don't know, but it just always strikes me as very J. Jonah Jameson. And then Betty here, I thought was very well drawn, especially the middle panel, the second panel, just very pretty and unique. Yes, a little bit like Betty Brant, but not. There's enough differences.
Yeah, definitely.
But for somebody now, take it or leave it. Everybody has their own opinions. If everybody has, opinions are worthless. Everybody's got two of them. It's fine. But I would argue, for me, I don't know that Steve Ditko is known for drawing his beautiful women. When you take, there's other artists, that's their claim to fame, right? So you would take people like John Romita. Everybody always says John Romita's girls are fantastic, all that. But I think this Betty stands up to just about anybody. I think that's very, very
I thought
face.
He was very good at drawing good women. Some people didn't think he was good at artist drawing women, but I think he could do it very well.
Yeah, I agree. I'll come back to this note just real quick to this Hulk as he's standing kind of slumped over like that. There's another one a little bit later that also looks like that. And again, it reminded me of another artist, and I'll mention it then. And so just keep that in mind in this one. And I'm curious to see if you see the same thing. But great stuff. Real fine hatching. Almost in today, like a modern equivalent. It looks very European. When you say European artist, it tends to be a finer line, more about the shadow and the hatching and bringing in texture. And this line work here in the middle really reminded me of that.
And you can see the visualization, the way he does it. You see how weak Banner is. He's slumped over. You just, does that so well.
Body language. Yeah. And Steve Ditko is very good at that, of creating weight with his figures.
Yeah.
That slumping where he's down on the floor there is unbelievable. So that's great stuff. You got the Teen Brigade. They're putting together a plan. They got a plan. And then the Metal Master. Now it is really worldwide, right? So now he's heading into, looks like the Russians, and they're attacking him. I thought that was an interesting, cool idea that the missiles split around him like that. Yeah. Again, it would have been great. I would have loved to have seen this done in, let's say, like 88, 89, something where we're more used to the big splash pages, the stuff like that. This is great, but I would have loved to see this 3 times the size. You know what I mean? But that just wasn't the style at the time. I thought the Melting Plains is cool too. That's a neat it's just a neat way to use the powers and do stuff creatively. Every time is a little bit different, right? Yeah, this was that other sequence I mentioned where, right, so he's flying off and you see the guys parachuting down. He zips up into the cloud, so we pan back and then we pan back again to the earth, and that's a great scene change. Okay, now we come back to Small, but that to me seemed very theatrical or cinematic.
Oh, that worked.
Of that panning out, which is great. Not everybody does it, or not everybody can do it. And then here I just mentioned this thing where they mentioned the Hulk remembers most of Bruce Banner's knowledge.
Wow, that didn't happen often.
Okay, so Hulk, he knows what Banner knows, but again, they do refer to each other separately, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
This weapon. So this thing that he makes. Zoom in on this a little. It's a great design. It's very cool. It means like nothing.
No, exactly.
We're like, none of this stuff makes
supposed
sense.
To like look dangerous,
but it looks dangerous. Now, the one thing I've read this comic probably 20, 30 times over the years, so I was like, oh yeah. And I never noticed this until today. It's not straight. I don't know that he ruled it, that he might have free-handed it. There are some nice square lines there, but if you trace the line from the back up, the front of the gun dips down.
Yeah.
And which is not a big deal. It doesn't hurt anything. And I said, listen, when you're creating something like this from scratch, and then you have to draw it in a 3/4 turn perspective, that's not easy to do, and to keep everything in line and nice and nice and parallel and all that. So I just one of those things, like as I was going through this afternoon, I was like, let me just flip through one more time, make sure I got all my thoughts together. And I was like, oh, I never really noticed that before.
Wow. Yeah.
Does this kid look like Flash Thompson? Or
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, there's a resemblance there.
Yeah,
you got a lot of kids in here, a lot of teenagers that are grown.
Right.
But yeah, that face definitely didn't look familiar.
Yeah. This face, not the best. This one didn't quite live up to snuff there, but that's it happens.
Which one?
The one on the opposite page, top right, panel 3 on page 18.
Oh, the Hulk
face. Yeah, it's a little wonky.
Yeah,
but it's a small panel, and you go, again, it is what it is. Good stuff here. I like the panic on the face.
That's a great look of panic.
Yep. The beads of sweat.
Yeah.
Combined with the eyes, the super wide eyes, really, really good stuff. That's a terrific panel and a great opportunity to zoom in. That's makes a lot of sense. That's when you want to do it. So I thought that was terrific.
Yeah.
But I do find it funny, like the Metal Master at no point does he think to himself, like, why is he shooting? What does it do? He can't destroy it, but it also doesn't seem to be doing anything. So what's the big deal?
True.
I don't think it ever specifically states where all this original stuff happened. So where Bruce's, where the lair is, where Ross's base is. I don't think so. But apparently he gets from wherever he is to Washington, D.C. area like in minutes.
Wow.
I do mention it is a record-breaking cross-country jet flight, but there's no way that should happen. That's okay. And then once the Hulk gets his hands on the Metal Master, it's all over and everything's fine. And then I love it. He's got his little his
pals over there.
That's and he's great. Like rubbing the kid's head. Like,
when would you see this before? He's friends with the kids and he's helping the kid. And he got a part in this issue.
I know.
I wrote that in big letters. The Hulk gets a part and it didn't last for 5 minutes. They didn't even mention it again. Next time he pops up is in the Avengers. Guess what? No mention of pardons. He's a menace again.
He's a menace.
So that pardon, I don't know if Stan wanted that to last or what he was going to do with it, but he totally, I think, forgot about it.
So good. And then, just the idea, like he goes at 1 minute, he's half tempted, like I could take over the world with this guy. And then he's like, oh, you kids deserve all the credit. You're the best.
Yes, we
My
have the team
pals.
brigade. These kids hanging out with them. That's you never that didn't last very long.
I want to see this. The thing we're missing is just off panel. There's a kid like going
Quivering,
like just like freaking
Get me
out.
out of here. Yeah, nobody's scared of him. Nobody's in fear.
He's the Hulk. He's cool.
Wow.
And then also by this time, the Hulk has completely forgotten that he was going to try to kill Rick. That he was so mad at Rick.
Yeah, that changed quickly too.
See ya. That's gone.
They didn't even mention it anymore.
Nope. So he leaps off back home and goes to transform and doesn't transform. And now we see the panic on the Hulk's face. And again, this is that Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, where, yeah, you love the freedom of being Mr. Hyde, but it's safe because you can always go back home. And now he's stuck and maybe he can't go back home. And so maybe he's not quite as confident as he was. So on page 23, the fourth panel where he's kind of slumped there. I'll zoom in. This figure here.
Okay.
This one right here.
Yeah.
So that was the one. We saw another one where he was getting transformed and he was kind of slumped like that.
Right.
This very much reminds me of Joe Kubert.
Okay.
There's something about the musculature and the way the muscles kind of hang off that arm.
Right.
It's for whatever reason. If I'm sure you've read Tor, I think it's right. It's Tor is Joe Kubert's like caveman.
yeah.
That's what it very much reminded me of, is that sort of Joe Kubert line work from Tor.
Okay. Yeah, well, he probably could have been influenced.
I mean,
he didn't mention him a lot, but he knew his work. And he's a big fan of Mort Meskin, who we mention all the time, who had this style too. So they were all pretty young then. But yeah, he's that's a possibility.
Well, I know from other stories, firsthand stories I've heard from folks who in the 90s, again, when things weren't being done through email and people would get like a package showed up and there's new pages, and you hear all these stories of people be like, I was at Marvel offices that weekend because I had a story meeting with the editor or whoever, right? And then all of a sudden it was like Sam Keith pages came in or Dale Keown pages came in and everybody was pouring over them like, what did they do this time? Those guys would steal, oh, look at how he's doing this little weird strip of cloth that looks like a phone cord ripped off. That's cool. I'm gonna take that. And they would go, and then you start seeing it appearing in other places. So these guys saw each other's work. Definitely. whether they saw the finished product.
And Ditko was a comic book fan to begin with. He started out and he loved comics. So he looked at everything. He looked at a lot of stuff. He knew what he liked. He knew what he didn't like. And he absorbed a lot of stuff. So,
and that's super smart because it's, that's take all those influences, learn from everybody else.
Definitely.
Use, what's there.
Yeah.
And it just makes you that much better. Great bit
that
here.
Transformation, I think, was very good too. That 5 panels on the bottom worked very well.
Yes, I do. I agree. I like it. This in between phase where it's, there's a little bit of green. He's still the facial features are different.
Yeah.
The body type is different. And then coming down to Bruce. That's great. And one of the earlier real full transitions that we really saw, we didn't see a ton of them.
No.
Whether it's the machine or he would just kind of ball up and then there he is. So it's a very nice piece and nice element. So we'll see what happens. Bruce shows up and he and Betty are apparently now like an item.
Yeah, I don't know when that happened, but
yes. She went from like, oh, I think he's kind of sweet and nice.
Although that panel with Ross, I love that Ross face over there and him saying he could have done better with the Hulk.
Oh yeah.
What a great line. Gotta go with him.
He's got a backbone. No, that is good. That is good.
But the way it ends, it looks like they were thinking about the future, even though it's an end. You can see it's like kind of like they know it's going to be the last issue. I could be wrong, but I think it's probably announced by the publisher already. We're going to cancel it. They didn't always know before time, but I think this might have been one where he was aware.
Yeah. but like you said, it's weird because there's the plot point of the Gamma machine isn't working right,
You
and
still have things going on. Yeah.
what's going to happen. There's obviously this triangle. How is he going to reveal his secret to Betty or not?
Mm-hmm.
You've even just introduced his fan club, the Teen Brigade. How are they playing? So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's very interesting to leave those things there.
Well, I gotta find my notes here, which I
and then wrap up the series. Yeah.
But as I said, let's see. Came back in 6 months. Oh, actually, a month before he was in FF number 12, Fantastic Four number 12, and they used him again. They probably again trying to push for the series, even though it was going to be ending. I don't know if they were aware then, but he was definitely on the cover there. He fought the FF in that issue, and then 6 months later, he became a member of the Avengers. And 2 months later, number 2, he quits. And it made sense when you looked at it. I mean, as a storyline, it was like you have the Hulk's back, and then all of a sudden, it's not going to work. It's not going to work out. So I think Stan probably always figured he was just going to put him in for a while and then have him as a continuing character there on and off. That's my guess, though. But he wanted to keep him around. Yep. Again, they used Teen Brigade was used in that issue again. There was no mention of the Pardon at all.
Right. Yeah.
I'm guessing Lee forgot about all that. Then with the second issue, the Space Phantom was an alien, took the Hulk's form, and they were fighting against him. So he just felt that they didn't trust him, and just had issues with him. They weren't getting along too well, and he ended number 2. He quits. He said, "I'm getting out of here." And I thought that was a novel approach to do that. It was something different. But then the third issue, so 3 issues in a row, he's there. 1, 2, and 3, he's in it. And then in 3, he teams up with the Submariner, who's actually using him to try to get the deal with the Avengers. He's being used, but he does team up with him. And by the way, it's back to pants.
Yep.
Number 3, he lasted for 2 issues, number 1, 2, and 3 with the shorts. Back to pants with number 3. So that's and of course, well, you were talking about the Gamma machine, everything. He's changing back and forth now. There was no rhyme or reason anymore. Now he'd be changing during the day. This is, there was some mention of stress in this issue.
But ironically,
not in big, all of a sudden he would change. It was daytime, he changed automatically. So it was becoming much more erratic. I've noticed that. And then 2 months after Avengers number 3, he appears in Fantastic Four 25-26. So he was being used a lot,
Yeah.
And this one story, which I never realized before, this is when I read it again, this follows directly from the Avengers 3. They mention it. They mention Captain America returning and the Hulk's out of there. And Hulk was coming back to New York area because he wanted to get revenge on the Avengers, but they were going out to look for him. So they weren't there. So the FF get involved, and I thought that was a great 2-part story. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. He was really kind of vicious, kind of brutal in this thing, still smart enough to deal with them, but they tore up like half of Manhattan, Jerry. Yeah. This would have been billions of dollars. They're ripping things apart, and there was actually one panel I saw where he rips this bus in half, and they had to add some copy at the end because they want to make sure nobody thought someone got killed or hurt. So, he ripped this empty bus, and you saw those quick lettering, could have been Stan lettering it himself. It's an empty bus, but he ripped it in 2.
Empty bus.
So then the Avengers get in the next issue, they get back. So it's a whole free-for-all with the Avengers, with the Hulk. And the funny thing is, if you'll look and read those issues, Stan can remember Banner's name. He called him Bob Banner, like for 2 full issues. And one in this Avengers number 2, he calls him, when the Rick Jones calls him Dr. He's changing back to Dr. Don Blake.
Don Blake.
And in the latest pages, later issues, say, yes, I goofed. I know, I understand. You all reminded me. He says, from now on, his name is Dr. Robert Bruce Banner. He says, so I can't mess up. But he forgot. He just called him Bob Banner for like 2 issues.
That's so funny.
and Betsy Ross instead of Betty Ross, but a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes went on.
I
But no,
found
we had him
myself.
in-
I
let me
found
just
myself
finish.
saying
Go
that
ahead.
too. It's hard to remember Betty Ross and not say Betsy Ross.
And he was in the Avengers number after number 26. He was also in the Avengers number 5, I think.
Okay.
He was involved with them again, fighting against them, but he was involved in that storyline, and Ross was in there and everything else. And then the next time he appears, and Rick gave the Hulk in FF26. He gives him a gamma capsule to change back to Bruce Banner. Where did this capsule come from? What was this capsule?
That's
Throws it
awesome.
in his mouth, and he changes back to Banner. Nobody saw it. Nobody didn't really weird.
Yeah, look.
And this had anxiety turning the Hulk back to the starting with that.
Okay.
And then, of course, he was an Amazing Spider-Man 14. It's somewhere around this time. So, and that was Stan's request to use him. He was only in a small part of that, but he was there.
Right.
And Ditko drew him again. And then he was in Tales to Astonish 59 the month before he debuted because, they wanted to set it up.
Yep. So
this time Dick Ayers drew him. It didn't work out too well story, but they basically are set up to do that, and they reviving the character. So that was the big thing. And then I'll, if you want, I could tell you what Ditko was saying about how they get back to do that, how they did the Hulk. I won't read it all, but this is from Robin Snyder, his publisher, editor, and Steve Ditko both worked on this. And okay, let me see if I can find the part there. Okay. He said, I was interested in working up an idea of my own, as I did with Strange again, for the sake of variety. I intended to do a hero in street clothing to avoid special costume changes, which probably turned out a year or two later to be the question. Yeah, it was probably what he would have done on his own.
Right.
Stan offered me Daredevil. I had already helped with the first issue, but didn't want to do him because he was too close to Spider-Man. Spider senses, blind super senses, and I didn't like the Kane gimmick.
Okay.
I turned down Iron Man because I didn't find the character with the weak heart gimmick interesting enough. Stan had a list of possible old Marvel characters to choose from. Kazar, the Submariner, Hulk, and other oldies. I shelved my ideas because Stan wanted a character to publish soon. I decided on the Hulk because I could work in the military angle when that was very different from Spider-Man and Doctor Strange. And then they had to debate what they're going to do, what to use, what not to use, how to change things around. And, that's really how they collaborated. This is probably the last time they really collaborated on a series together, and give and take. They wanted to get rid of the aliens and other stuff. And of course, they wanted to focus more on the Spider-Man angle, which was the concentrating on the civilian character, on Bruce Banner, what his problems, his issues. They knew that was successful, so they said, let's work on that more. Now I don't know who came up with General Ross. That might have been Leo or Ditko could have came up with that, because you had somebody involved in their an outsider involved in the relationship there. He liked Betty. He was a military person. And of course, Rick Jones was still there for a while, and you had the leader, which I think might have been a Ditko idea too. But yeah, it was just, you'll talk about that more as the series goes on. But the fact that they wanted to develop it, and look at Ditko, he just turned things down. Most artists back then, Jerry, Kazar, great, they'd say great and do it.
Yep.
That was rare. That was rare.
Right.
That he really had he didn't like Daredevil because it was, a lot like Spider-Man in some ways. He did him once when Stan asked him to do him for the, when the first issue was coming out, second issue in Spider-Man. So he used him as guest star, but, he didn't want to do a regular series. He did him in the later years, a couple of issues here and there. And he did the Hulk later on, as you'll get to.
He did a guest, Ditko drew a guest appearance of Daredevil and Spider-Man with the Circus of Crime.
Yeah, of course. And that was at Stan's request.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned in the past, the circus ringmaster was Simon and Kirby. They came out in the 40s.
Right.
Kirby probably remembered the character, whatever. I don't think it was Stan who came up with the, thought of that, and he just reused them. So, no notation, no notice of anything. It was just like a new character.
Yep, and we saw him here in, I'm going to say it must have been issue 3 of
I
the
think
Hulk,
it was 3 or
right?
4. I forget what issue he was in. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it might have been 4. You're right. It's 3 or 4, but yeah. So we just saw him a couple episodes ago here with the Hulk, which was a very weird and very wacky storyline.
Yeah.
But interesting.
No, it was good.
It was good. This one, I like this one. Like I said, this is I've read this a million times. I really like this story from when I was a kid. So there's a lot of nostalgia for me. Just for the viewers with my rating system, I would give this one an 8 out of 10. I liked this issue a lot.
Yeah.
One of the things I did really like, which I didn't mention, but it's one complete long story.
Oh
where
yeah.
so many at this time were being broken up. We talked about it before, you and I, about the breakup into chapters. And we even saw that in issue 5 is broken up into two chapters, 2 stories. And I like the one long story.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to know it did go in this essay, was also saying he didn't know why it succeeded. You know, it was doing well as a serialized adventure. But he said maybe that's why it was doing well. It was serialized, it was continued every issue, and it was a shorter. You know, he don't know. He was guessing. You know, why did this series succeed? Kirby was still doing the covers. You know, his hand might have been involved too, but for some reason, with the fans, with the letters, people liked it. You know, but I think again, even earlier on with the FF and those are some really good stories, and built every letter page was like, what are we going to do with the Hulk? When are you going to see the Hulk more? So he got the interest going by the fans and the kids reading it, and I think he kept pushing it. You know, and he got a good person to work with to make it make it work well, make it successful.
Yeah, I agree.
And then it grew as the years went on, and it grew even more.
That's exactly. I mean, obviously you had something, and just because it wasn't necessarily working right off the bat, it obviously became incredibly successful. There's hundreds and hundreds of issues of the Hulk and movies and merch and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's unbelievable. So
he was in the cartoons in 1966. So I was watching them all superheroes. They did the Metal Mask. They did these stories. They redid them a bit, but you know, a lot of it go in these in those films. You know, those cartoons.
That's
so
a great
yeah.
There was the 80s,
and they had the gum cards. They had the they was even in the 60s. They were having stuff, T-shirts, the gum cards, merchandise, toys. Yeah, it started to grow.
Yep. A popular character that obviously has had a major impact on, you know, media and pop culture. So we can't deny the Hulk and the greatness that came out of it. So as we all been talking,
6 months, it was gone for he was only gone for 6 months, like 3 issues, you know, right? 6 months. And then as soon as the Avengers came out, he said, let's use them.
So just so everybody knows, that's what we're talking about again. So the regular series was canceled. And so as far as the PDFs and the prints that I have, the way that they did the series is it stops at 6 and then it goes to Tales to Astonish. And Tales to Astonish is one of those, supposed to be kind of an anthology magazine. You have characters, and it kind of for several months becomes just Ant-Man, Ant-Man/Giant Man, and the Hulk.
Yes.
And so it's a half and half book. So those are the next ones that I have in this series that we'll be reviewing. I probably skip the Ant-Man part. We'll probably just stick with the Hulk.
Yeah, Giant Man was Giant Man at that time. Didn't work today. Again, he kept trying to fix that. It just didn't work. I think if Ant-Man, what it's always Kirby once said, I didn't have time to concentrate on this. I could have done great stuff with the ants and living in that little small world, creating something. Didn't have time. So they changed it to Giant Man because it wasn't selling that well. They added the Wasp to try to make it sell. And nothing worked. Giant Man was replaced with Submariner, and Wally Wood was originally supposed to draw that. Every time you see a character appearing a few months before he was in Daredevil, that's a setup to see how it'll work with the character. Just like Stan did with John Romita. A few months before, Spider-Man appears. How do you do it? And just didn't work. Submariner, I guess, did a little better sales-wise. I don't know what the sales were, but I suspect the Giant Man, who was the lead character at that time, sales were just not doing good enough to continue it. But they brought him back again in the Avengers. Again, you kept using him.
Yeah. So Submariner's probably that's another Stan favorite, I think, that you see over and over, and was always
Oh
trying to
yeah,
find ways to work him in, to get him to try to stick, and it's
I
never
thought he worked. One of my friends says this too. Worked better as an enemy of the heroes. They're always popping up in the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, the
Yep.
X-Men. He was a menace, you know. He was a threat to them,
Right.
and I think that worked out well, you know. But then when he became a hero, couldn't use him that much in that way.
Yeah.
So, but he was in the FF a
Yes.
lot of appearances in the Fantastic Four, in the Avengers, in the X-Men. So he was one of these so-called villains, you know, at that time, and the
Right.
Hulk became that for a short while. You
Yep.
know, he was not you know, he wasn't the nicest of characters there. He
Right.
wanted to take on the Avengers. He wanted to get revenge on everybody. He said,
Right.
"Everybody hates me. You know, why should I do anything?" You know, but then they had to change that to make him a continuing character and to make him more heroic, more
Yeah.
on the better side.
And a little more tragic,
Yeah,
working in
yeah.
the tragedy that it's more of, it
Oh yeah,
becomes a curse of Bruce Banner, where at this phase, what we just looked at, it's like, this is funsy time. I got my secret lair and I could
oh
change
yeah,
back and forth, as opposed to what we later see as a very tragic figure. He's cursed with this burden and he can't share it, and he's constantly moving, and it's upsetting. You can't have a normal life, and that probably resonated a little more,
oh yeah, yeah.
with
I
your
think that
average
helped.
viewer.
They
And
play that up more, and I think they realized that would be the way
yeah,
to go. You
yeah.
know, he was not, again, didn't have the teenage friends, pals to help out a reissue. That would have been, imagine if that sold. That would have,
Wow.
Rick
Wow.
Jones and his Teen Brigade a reissue. Maybe that
Oh
would have
my.
got their own comic. There you go.
Yeah, right. That would have been a clear spit off for sure. Yeah.
But you know, they had the supporting characters there. You had, you know, again, the military angle kept going on. Ross was there all the time, and
Yep.
you know, but it developed, like I said, it changes. I won't go into details there, but
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of things that go on the next 10, 15 issues with the Hulk, and so many different artists too, working with
Yep.
him until Herb Trimpe became the big
Yep.
guy. That
Yep.
was on for quite a number of years.
Yep.
And he became the artist, the Hulk artist.
Yep.
Very nice guy too, by the way. I spoke to him. And
Yes.
such a
Yeah.
nice guy, easy to talk to. If you
Mhm.
ever see it, there's a thing called Herb Trimpe, We Love You. It's on YouTube. You can find it. They did that in the late 60s or early 70s, a little mini documentary about
Oh,
him.
cool.
You watch that. It's a short piece.
That's awesome.
You know, done from a film school. And it's a lot of fun to watch because he was traveling then and doing stuff and doing work
Yeah.
in Marvel. It's always well a thoughtful guy.
Yes, I got a chance to talk to him later in his life, when at conventions, when people started bringing him back out
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
being like, "Hey, we need to show this respect and give Herb his flowers. Like, he deserves
Yeah.
the credit that he should have." And so it was nice to talk to him. He was very humble, very just cool guy. He,
Yeah.
like, I can't believe people are here to talk to me. Like, I just drew comics. I drew I don't know. And people were like, you're the guy. Like, you're the man.
Yeah. He
And
was a little taken aback.
yeah, so it was very cool, and I'm glad I got that opportunity, because he was a real super nice guy.
And you had
Um,
so many other artists that you'll get to it
oh,
later on, but you know,
yeah.
Gil Kane did the
Yep.
Hulk, and Marie Severn, and I know many others back, Bob Powell, all these other people. Most of them working over Jack Kirby layouts later on, but
Right.
that's a story we'll get to in a later
Sal,
time. But
yeah,
Kirby will be back
a
eventually.
lot of Sal Buscema.
Sal Buscema did a lot, yeah.
Did a lot of Hulk stuff. So I'm very there's a lot of meat on this bone. I'm very excited to get into this series. I knew there was no way I could get all the way through Spider-Man and then start the Hulk. I'd be
Yeah, that was
70 years old by the time I started. So I was like,
it'd be my
"Man,
age. You know, get to my age.
I got to do a
Uh,
couple at once." And here's the other thing: I also have this same format. I have the Fantastic Four as well.
Really?
So at some point, I'll dive into that when I
That's
have
a
enough
lot there.
when I have enough time to produce 3 things. Right now, I can.
Yeah, doing two is quite a bit. I give you
I'm really
credit.
holding on.
You
Yeah.
do such a great job
Thank
every
you.
week. We look forward to. I'm still learning things. learning
great.
things art-wise from you. And that's, I've read this stuff many, many times. Whatever little things I contribute to you, I'm glad to help out.
It's fantastic. Thank
I
you.
mean,
Your insights in history and stuff is always amazing. You hit me up with these messages after the video comes out, and you're like, "Oh,
I try to get it before time sometimes, like this Captain Stacy. I forgot all about. I help Roy find a photo of the actor.
oh yeah,
For the John Romita book they were doing. I said,
right,
yeah, I'll find it. I'll track it down. But yeah, Romita did a lot of that type of stuff.
mm-hmm.
And the Don Heck issues, as I told you in the comments, I think Romita was busy doing the Spectacular, which we'll talk about soon.
Right.
And I think the comic strip, they were working on a comic strip in the late 60s.
Yep.
For Spider-Man, he was drawing that and inking and penciling, inking, working with Stan. So I think that's why he was like, people said, why wasn't he doing Spider-Man? He only did one book a month. He was doing all this other outside stuff, and then covers and layouts and cover designs. They had, that's one thing he said. He had me working, always doing something. Would have been nicer for him to do the complete story all the time, but can't have that.
I mean, it's for sure. It was a job. You see these guys from the 60s in the 70s, and they talk about what it was like to produce comics at that time. And they're like, it was a full-time job, just a job. Like,
and some of these guys did not do superheroes before. They didn't, they're like more natural stories. Like Don Heck, I think he was very suited to romance stuff, to westerns, to a crime story. He was good at doing down to earth and realistic stuff. So he had to break away. He had to always felt that he was pushed to do the Kirby stuff. He loved Kirby, but he said, I'm not him. I can't do the same type of thing. He tried hard, but he really felt it sometimes. Romita was saying he just really was despondent over what he could do.
You got to have that imagination. It's hard. It's not just the storytelling. It's a lot. Superhero comics are a challenge.
And then when you're working with 2 or 3 guys, I think it breaks it up a bit when I got one guy doing the complete thing. That's great. The complete art. But then you have a pencil layout artist, penciler, and then an inker, it was a lot. And they did that with Don a lot of times on X-Men and other places. So that was rough.
It's always interesting. So what we just looked at, to tie it back to what we just were talking about here with this issue of the Hulk. So Steve Ditko is inking himself, and most, I think, artists would tell you the penciler is usually their own best inker, typically. And the reason is because as you're drawing in pencil, what you want to look like. So it's all a question of how much you do in pencil versus how much you actually draw in ink. And most pencilers who ink themselves will do more rough pencils, keep it real loose, and do a lot of the drawing in the ink. It saves time. And it's a singular vision. You know what you want out of this image, this panel, this page, the whole thing. There's no back and forth. There's no misunderstandings. When you have a bad inking pencil team, it's glaring. Like you immediately go, ugh. You could take your favorite penciler and put him with a bad inker and be like, that's not good.
Yeah, I've seen that many times.
When you have a pair that do just gel and they're simpatico, like they are on it together and they work together for a long time, that can bring something that's different from both of them, which is fascinating to me from the art side. I'm trying to think very specifically of some good examples. Well, like for me, so I'll take, we talked later, folks will see Sal Buscema is one of the artists that took over the Hulk in the, I'm gonna say late 70s, right?
Yeah, mid to late 70s, yeah.
And had a pretty long run and is pretty well known. Bunch of inkers. My favorite inker over Sal Buscema is Ernie Chan. I love that combination. The way they work together is terrific. When I look at like early 90s Sal Buscema on Spider-Man, I don't like it as much for me personally.
Right.
The line, and I don't know who's inking him at that stage, but he might be inking himself. It's very hard. It's very hard. It's very angular. The line is there's parts, sometimes the line is dead, which means it just has one kind of thickness to the line. It doesn't flow.
Right.
So for me, that's not my favorite Sal work. To me, Sal Buscema, his power is in his layouts, it's in the page composition, it's in the motion, the Hulk twisting and ripping stuff. But
Right.
it's the little details, it's the soft organic inks that Ernie Chan brings that Sal maybe not wouldn't have brought to himself, that I like better, that pairing.
Right.
So
Right.
some folks, so I would argue Steve Ditko is his own best inker. Neil Adams always said he was his own best inker.
Yeah.
Of course, Neil would say he's everybody's best inker because he was in that.
Well, I'll point this out before I forget, because Ditko also said in the essay that he didn't ink the Hulk because he just figured he wouldn't have enough time to get it done. So it probably was suggestion there, but he didn't do it. It was inked by, when you get to it next week.
Okay.
It's not George Bell. That's another pseudonym.
Right.
George Rousseau. I didn't know if you knew
George
that.
Rousseau. Okay.
And he admittedly said the same thing himself in interviews. He just said, I had to get so much work done. I rushed things out too much sometimes. And he admits it didn't come out as well as he expected it to.
Right.
He inked some of those issues. He had other inkers that worked in, some better, some not so well. Those, I think 9 issues he did. The best one to me was Frank Giacoia.
Oh, yeah.
He did 1 issue, I think, and that stood out better. But Rousseau, he has a certain way of doing it, and it was okay, but it just didn't, same thing on Kirby's work. He rushed it out. He had so much, again, rushing, getting that inking last minute. He said it had a lot to do. And when nobody else was available, Dick Ayers was like penciling 3 or 4 strips at that time.
Right.
They had to give it to someone else, until you got a Joe Sinnott, who really was skillful
Yes.
inker, and he only concentrated like 1 or 2 books a month. Usually just Fantastic Four. Once in a while, he'd help out with other stuff.
Joe Sinnott is great inker. Great work with anybody, right? There's some inkers that are just going to be super with anybody. He's one of them. There's also inkers that overpower it. There's inkers where you go, I don't recognize the penciler, I recognize the inker.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That
has happened. Even if they're really good, sometimes they just don't compatible with the artist. Tom Palmer inked Ditko once, and I just didn't think it worked well. Just too overpowering. Right. You didn't see much of Ditko in there at all. So that was, I thought it would be a great team, but it didn't work for me.
Yeah, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. They could be as good an inker as possible, but
other guys that could
mixes it there.
They click, they click, and you expect them to click because there are sensibilities in inking, and a guy like P. Craig Russell, when he inked a Ditko, or Steve Lee Aloha, one of these guys, they just knew how to do it. Just something clicked. It was good teaming. Yeah. But others looked at them and said, "Oh man, this is not good." Couldn't he have inked himself? But he never. Later years, he just didn't like it because they would send him stuff back late. In the production process, that he had penciled and he had to be lettered, and then it'd go back to the inker. And he said sometimes weeks had passed. And I do even with Doctor Strange. He said a lot of times, I do the story, and then weeks passed before I got the story back, and I had to rush it out. So that was the hard part, and that was a small process back then. You only had a handful of people there. Now later years you had more to choose from, but like you said, then you had a assembly line of who's inking. Jack Abel on this page, Terry Austin on this panel, Bob Wyacek this one, that one, and I've identified some of those, and others have done on the Grand Comics database to figure out who's doing what. But it's rough sometimes. There's a lot of people involved.
A lot of hands involved, and that's another way too. They would take and test out new inkers. Right. So you go, hey, we got a bunch of pages. You're going to do the backgrounds in these 2 panels. Let's see how you do. Let's help out by pitching in and doing all this and that. But that was a good way to kind of like see what they had, how it was going to mesh. Did they understand what level of pencil detail did they understand? Was that clear enough? So if you take a guy like like John Buscema, so big John was super loose. His pencils were like crazy loose. So you needed an inker that's a finisher, who's an artist, not just an inker. And then so you wouldn't want to give him to somebody that was that didn't know how to translate the pencils. You know what I mean?
That would have been a problem. But Terry Austin started that way, doing backgrounds. He was working for Dick Giordano, and just so you could see it was so detailed at that point. You saw how good he was. And that was when his name was like in the backgrounds. He was not even credited.
I think I'm trying to remember. I think Gary Martin started out as an I want to say as an assistant to Terry
Could be. I'd have
Austin,
to
I
check
think,
that.
as
It's
well.
possible.
And here's a guy that's now literally written the book on
Wow.
inking.
Yeah.
Gary Martin has a great inking book out there. It's been gone through a number of prints. I highly recommend it. If anybody wants to learn inking,
Yeah.
I think it's called Gary Martin's The Art of Inking.
Okay. Yeah, they
if I'm
can
not
check
mistaken.
that out.
Yeah, it's good.
But yeah, you got to learn. It's a good way to learn.
Yep.
In the business,
Alrighty,
I don't know what they do now.
So we're gonna wrap things up. We've been about an hour and a half. Nick, this is awesome.
Wow.
I know it's gone so fast. This is a great issue. I really appreciate
If you cut out the
coming
Teen Brigade stuff, you'll have like 30 minutes. No.
You got to keep the Teen Brigade stuff. It's the best stuff of the whole book. But is there anything that you want to let folks know about? Anything you plugging? Anything you're working on these days that you want to share?
Let's see. Just doing my regular stuff, always helping out with credits and always trying to get the information right in the Grand Comics database. And I put inkers and letterers and colorists and whatever information I have, I help out writers. There's always something to do, and there's always research and stuff to do with comics. So yeah, I'm always up to something. So glad to be on here, and always enjoy doing this with you because you did such a great job on this. So.
Thank you so much. I'm going to put the link again to your blog in the description of the video so that folks can check that out, because if you want to know history and Marvel Comics history, Nick is the guy. I've never met anybody that knows more. This man is the walking encyclopedia, and his blog.
Still learning, Jerry. Still learning. Funny thing is AI.
Never stop.
I can't mess with AI anymore because a few weeks ago, there's a guy that did a thing on Ditko online, and he said he didn't know much about him, but he was exploring number 33 of Spider-Man, and did a good job. So he said, if anybody knows more about him or wants to, let me know. So I sent him a link in the comment section. But I said, how am I going to send him a link with all the different things I've written about Ditko on my blog? How does it link up? So I typed in my name and Ditko and Nick Caputo blog, and all of a sudden AI gives me this whole thing, what I've done, and it bullet points for the Ditko stuff. I'm like, and they were right. It was correct. I was just amazed at how well it gotten assembled all the information.
It's incredible.
So I sent him that. Here's a link with all the stuff there.
Perfect. For that kind of stuff, that's the part I'm comfortable with AI being a way to quickly look through multiple databases to get you answers like that. I like.
It's a tool.
That right now, that's about it. I'm not a big AI art is not. I'm not a fan of that.
No, I don't blame you for that. No,
and we'll see. We'll see when it dips into comics and
movies and everything else.
Yeah,
that could be a problem.
Yeah.
But thanks again, Jerry.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I will have you on again 100% for sure. We've got some interesting stuff coming up on both titles here. When we get back to the regular Hulk series, that's going to be really fun. And then with Spidey, we've got we're up into the late 50s or heading towards issue 60. I mean, we're really moving along. So there's going to be
some good issues to come.
A lot of big stuff coming up for sure. So we'll have you on again. Thank you for everything. I appreciate it. And for everybody out there, thank you. We'll see you next week with more Incredible Hulk. Thanks.